Hello everyone, welcome back. So today's topic is we are going to look at the two-dimensional list, okay? And we will also understand what a matrix is and how to accept data into a matrix and display it. So these are the two things. Actually, they are correlated because to accept the data into a matrix, we need to have a two-dimensional uh, list. Okay, so we will understand what's a two-dimensional list, how to create it and use it. But let us understand first something about the matrix. So a matrix is basically an arrangement of numbers in form of rows and columns. Okay, so here is an example in front of you that this is a matrix where we have the rows and columns. So these are the rows, row 1, 2 and 3, and these are the columns. Okay, so this is basically a dimension of matrix is 3 by 3. So total elements that we will have is total 9. 3 into 3, that is 9. Okay, so we will have nine numbers stored in a kind of a form of an arrangement of rows and columns. Okay, so it's kind of a table, you can say. It looks like it. Okay, and this is one more example, so where the number of rows are 3 and the columns are 2. So the dimension of this particular matrix is 3 into 2, so we will have 6 elements in this matrix. So basically matrix is an arrangement of numbers in form of rows and columns. Okay, so now what we will do is we will write a program in Python and accept the numbers in form of a matrix. We will store the numbers in form of a matrix, and we will display, and then we will display the number. Now to do this, to accomplish this task, we need to understand about nested list. That is a two-dimensional list. So let us understand the two-dimensional list, how to create it. Okay, so I'll just go to the script mode. I'll just close this one. Okay, so now what we will do first is create a two-dimensional list that it will be predefined. For example, L is equal to, this is a list, and inside that I will have a nested list. For example, 1, 2 and 3. This is now a nested list, isn't it? Now then, comma and one more nested list, maybe the numbers are so and so, 3, 5 and 7. So now you can see this is actually a kind of a matrix. Okay, if I bring this to the next line, so now you can understand that this is the first row, this, and then this is the second row, and number of columns that we have is 1, 2 and 3. So this is basically a 2 rows and 3 columns matrix, you can say. Okay, but if you go by Python, this is actually a nested list, a two-dimensional nested list. Okay, so 2 by 2. If I want to have one more row, I can add one more row to it, and this is how I can add it. Okay, so now this becomes a 3 by 3 dimension matrix. So basically there are 3 rows. This is the first row, second row and the third row, and these are the columns. Okay, so now what if I want to access the individual elements from this nested two-dimensional list? For example, I want to access the number 5. Now how can I access? For example, if I try to print L of 0. Now L of 0 basically will mean the first item in the list, the outermost list. Right now the first item in the outermost list, that is this innermost list. So if I try to print L of 0, it will print this entire list. So I will just run this to show you the output, and we will test. Okay, So now you can see the output that it will display the first row, the first complete row, it displayed it, isn't it? Similarly, if I make this as 1, so this will display the next list, the next item from that particular list, and that is 357, which is a list itself. So this is the second list, the innermost list, isn't it? But what if I want to access individual elements? In that case, first, for example, I have to access this number 5. So this belongs to the second item of the list. So I will give the index value as 1, because the index value starts from 0, 0 and 1. And then from here, one more index value I need to give, that is, this is 0, this innermost list, this is the 0th index and this is the 1 index. So I'll give this as 1. Now you can see the output will be, that is number 5. Okay, so this is how you can access individual values or elements. And okay, one more example. If I want to access this 9, so this is a 0 outermost list, that is 0, 1 and 2. So I will make it over here as 2, and this is 0, 1, 2. So this is 2 by 2. Okay, and if I want to have 7, so this is 0 and 1. So I'll make the second index as 1. So in that case, you can see we will have the output as 7. So this is, you can understand how I'm accessing the elements from the list, okay, from a nested two-dimensional list. So this is the first index that we will locate the innermost row where that individual number belongs, and then the second index from that particular list, then I will access that particular index. Using that index, I can access that particular value. So this is, if I say 2 and 1, so this means 1, 2, 3. So that is index value 2, 0, 1, 2, and from here 1. So 0 and 1. So this is what will get displayed. So I hope this thing is very much clear to you. Now we will move on to, now this is a list where we have created this list, a two-dimensional list, but it is predefined, isn't it? We have just predefined it. What if the user enters the number of rows and the number of columns, and depending on that number of rows and columns, we will dynamically create a list. Now that is what we have to learn. So let us accept the number of rows and columns from the user. For example, rows, that's the name of my variable, and I will give input as enter how many rows, right? How many rows? And then next I will give the variable name as calls, and I say as int, okay, and I will enter how many columns. And depending on this, we will be creating a list, a two-dimensional list. Now, how to do that? Okay, the first thing that we will do is we will have an empty list declared before, and this will be an empty list, and then we will create this list L as a nested, as a two-dimensional list, as a nested list. Now the first thing that we need to do is use a for loop for I in range and the number of rows. Now the number of rows over here is the variable rows. So this will have the number of rows, right? So if the number of rows, if the number of rows is for example 4, okay, if the number of rows is 4, so in that case this loop will run from 0 to 3, isn't it? And then inside what I will do is use this list L, which is an empty list, and I will use the append function, okay, the append function. And the append function, what we will do is the append function basically will add an element into this empty list, isn't it? So it will add an element into this list. So what I need to do is I need to create a list that will be an empty list, okay, and I will assign 0 to it, and I will multiply that with the number of calls. Okay, now let us understand this. So this will actually generate, if I say over here, okay, just forget this for a moment, and what if I do this like you know, and okay, I'll use the same variable and make this and into 4 example, and then I try to print L. So what will happen is this will basically, the 0 will get replicated 4 times. So we will have a list where we have 4 zeros. If it is 0 or it is 1, you know, it will be replicated for 4 times. So I will run this. Okay, I'll just put this entire thing under, okay, under a string so that it does not run. Okay, that's it. Okay, now let us see the output for this first. Now please understand, see we have number of rows. Now we are not going to do anything with this particular values. It will simply show you a list which has 4 ones. Now this happened because we had this list and we had the into operator, that is a multiplication operator into 4. So that will get replicated. So 1 will get replicated 4 times and it will make that as one whole list. So if I make this as 0 and this as 5, so in that case we will have a list which has 5 zeros, okay, which will have 5 zeros. Over here you can see it, isn't it? So the same thing, the same logic, I'm using it over here. Okay, the same logic I'm using it over here. So if I have number of columns as anything like 2, so this will create a list which will have 2 zeros, and that list I will add into this list L. Okay, so that is how I'm going to create it. Now I will go ahead and I will simply print L. Okay, now let us see whether this works or not. Okay, let us run this program and I will say number of rows is 4 and number of columns is 2. Now you can see what happened over here is number of rows are 4. So these are the 4 rows. The first row, this is the second, this is the third, and this is the fourth row. And inside this rows we have 2 columns. So these are the 2 columns, isn't it? So what if I have to access, if I say print, if I have to refer to one particular element, so if I say print L of 0 and 0, so this means that I'm accessing the first row, first column, right? Index value 0. So first row, first column. Okay, so if I try to print this, it's going to print 0 anyway because now I gave 4 and 2. Okay, so it will print 0 anyway because initial the values are 0. So but what I referred is I refer to the first row and first column, so that is this 0, and we printed that. Okay, so that is how you can refer to individual elements as I explained it earlier. Now we created 4 by 2. Let us create, okay, I'll just remove this now. Let us create an nested 2-dimensional list that is 4 rows, 4 columns. Now you can see 4 rows, the 1, 2, this is 3, and this is 4, and inside you can see these are the columns, 4 columns for every individual list that we have inside. Okay, so this is how you can create a nested list. Now there are some other ways also you can create, but I guess this is the most appropriate and easiest way you can create a nested list. There is also another way that is called as the Python generator, by which you can create a nested list. I'll just show you how to do that using the generator. So this will basically mean L, and need to have something like 0 for I in range, and over here you need to give the rows. Okay, over here you need to give the columns, and just close this, and again for I in range, that is rows. Okay, Okay, this is kind of a generator that we need, is by which we can create a two-dimensional list. Okay, let us run this and see the output. Okay, that is 4 and 2. So you can see this is 4 rows and 2 columns. So this is basically, we have to understand. If you really want to understand this, it is a generator. So for I in range of columns, so first we actually create columns with having that many times we will have a list which will have zeros, and then those columns we will have that many rows. Okay, so it is bit confusing, but this is how the generator works. So if you're really don't want to go by this way, you want to really go by your way, then this is your route. This route you can follow, okay, where you actually understand what exactly is happening, isn't it? So this is how you can create a nested list, a two-dimensional list. Now what if I want to accept a matrix? Okay, now for that, once I create a list, then the next step I will have is for accepting elements into a list. So I will use a range function which will run for the number of rows, and then the J loop that will run for the number of columns. Okay, and then what I need to do inside is use L of I and J. So this is, I'm accessing the row, the first row and the first element. Okay, and I will say equal to, I will use the input function, and I say enter the value, okay, at row, and then I will do something like str of I will convert that into a string, and then I will say, okay, this will be, okay, and then I say call, okay, call, and again strj, okay, and then a colon, and then I will close this. Okay, I need to use a plus sign over here. Okay, that is, I'm just doing the joining of the strings. Okay, this comma I can use it in a in a parent statement, isn't it? And then I will close this. Okay, now I just need to give a space over here and over here. Okay, so that's it, and then this is how we are going to accept the elements into a list. So what happens over here is I initially will be 0. For example, the number of rows are 4, columns are 2, so I will be 0. So 0 and J will be initially 0. So first row, first column. So basically what I will do is I will accept a number over here, first row, first column. Okay, and then the J loop will complete, so it will go, J was 0, now it will become 1. I will remain as 0 itself because the J loop is yet executing it, right? So this will be 0, this will be 1. So this is first row, second column. So basically I'll be accessing, storing the number over here. So first row, first column, first row, second column, first row, third column, if it is a 3 by 3 dimensional list, okay, a matrix. So this is how individually we'll be storing numbers in that particular position, and then using the same technique we can display the list. So now there are two ways. I will just show you. I can just use one for loop and simply print L of I. So this will individually print the rows of that particular list. Okay, so L of 0 the first list, L of 1 the second list, and so on. Now, and I will just, okay, fine. Now I will just run this and see the output. Okay, number of rows is 4 and number of calls is 2. Now you can see enter the value at row 0 and call 0. Now that doesn't look good, right? The index value starts from 0, but we want the user to have it from 1. So I will just make this as +1 and this is as j plus 1. Okay, now let us run this code. And number of rows 4, calls as 3. Now you can see first row, first column, I will give the element as 12, first row, second column as 45, first row, third column, that is 67. Now can you guess the next message? It will be second row, you can see second row and the column will be first. Okay, so I will just second row, second column, second row, third column, third row, column 1, third row, column 2, third row, column 3, and then the fourth row. Okay, and here it is, and we displayed the matrix. Now because you can see these are individual list. Why? Because I have just used one for loop and I'm just individually displaying the list. If you want to individually display every element, in that case again you will be using a nested loop, and you can go till calls, and then you can print individual items, that is L of I and J. Okay, and just I'll give end with a null string so that I will be on the same line. And okay, just give a space, not a null string, I'll give a space, and now you can see the output. We will just give a very small input. The input will be pretty small just to see the output immediately, that is 2 by 2, and then the first row, column, and 78. Okay, third row, something went wrong. Third row, how come third row came down? Okay, just a minute. This is the number of rows. Okay, this I need to remove over here. Okay, now we will run this. Okay, 2 by 2. Okay, L is not defined. Just a minute. L is equal to empty string. Now let us run this. Okay, 2 by 2, and numbers are this. And here this is the first item I displayed, this is the second, third, and fourth. So let us display this on the next line, and for that what I can do is outside the J loop just give a print statement, and that will solve the problem. Okay, so 2 by 2 on here it is. Okay, so we had this first row individually. I am displaying the items, right? 2 by 2. So this is how you can accept elements into a matrix and display the elements. So I hope this entire tutorial is very much clear to you now. You need to practice how to create a nested dynamically, how to create a nested list, that is a two-dimensional list, which will be a form of a matrix, and then we accepted data into the matrix using a nested loop, and then we displayed the same using the nested loop. Okay, so just practice it and it will be more clear to you. If any doubt, just rewind the video, go start it from the beginning, and just you can learn it. Okay, bye for now.
So if you have liked my video, do subscribe to my channel. There is a subscribe button in front of you. Click it right away, and after that click on the bell icon so that you can get the regular notifications of my videos. Bye for now.